Hello, everyone. My name is Pastor Sanghoon Yoo. I founded the Faithful City Ministry at Arizona State University about 25 years ago. Before that, I was in the social field a long time. Out of all my background, as well as with my ministries, I did a lot of work for the community with the social services, in addition to my own campus ministries. So I work with the city government and social workers and community organizations and mental health organizations. However, I departed the social field because I felt there's a huge gap. In the middle of that, about 10 years ago, I started my own traumatic season. And I was in very suicidal 6 years ago. And you see that the kind of interesting and grief graph here. The left side is kind of a normal grief. But when I was surrounded by so many trauma, including my own, um, totally my life was torn. And then I was in the vicarious trauma, but also I was in my own trauma and very suicidal, and I lost all hope. And then I just I want to give up everything. And so today I'm going to talk about trauma from the church, but this is my testimony, and we don't have a long time, so I'm going to briefly introduce you with my own story. Um, so I hope you can really feel hopeful with my session, and then hopefully you can join to our movement. Well, 5 6 years ago, I'm sorry, I went to that DC to be a part of a certain conference, and I met another conference called the Trauma Informed Congregation National Conference. So I was kind of shocked because um, I never thought that mental health and faith and pastors and trauma can work together, but it was happening. And actually, because of that, I really owe to the Kimberly Conko, who the organized the whole the conference at the time in DC. And I came back to Arizona, and I met Marsha Stanton, one of the founders of Arizona ACEs Consortium. ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences, and you can see the website you can visit. And this was kind of a beginning of that kind of my recovery, because I met God again in the middle of all my faith struggle. And also there are a couple of people really helped me and supported me constantly wherever I was located, high and low, and trauma and drama and all the crises. And also this trauma informed care science and movement, including Arizona ACES Consortium, all the knowledge and skills that I learned, applied myself, and really it helped my recovery as well as my faith. In addition to that, with all these things, I actually founded Arizona Trauma Informed Faith Community. And I don't know, after that, the movement just exponentially grew. It takes days and nights for me to share how the movement went on. And I organized a statewide the conference, which in which we invite the national speakers to. And with that, we just the movement went on organizational level, individual level, and movement as a movement statewide level. And now I'm engaged in a lot of national leaders for this whole the ACEs and trauma informed care movement. So I'm here to really introduce briefly about the trauma informed church and invite you to this movement. If you have any questions or any interest, please email to me, the facebookcity@gmail.com, or you can call to me. Well, I want to start with this Bible verse here, Psalms 34:18. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in the spirit. Well, what does it mean? And why it is important? And because when there's something happen and things are not going well, and or I'm broken, or I feel like I'm away from God, or God is away from me, right? And however, this the Bible verse tells us that what? Um, Actually, God is near to us. In our church, usually we think, hey, you did something wrong, that's why you are in that situation. Or I feel guilty and I'm ashamed and I feel that way. Maybe I do something wrong to God. Yeah, maybe that might be true. But sometimes there's something that I did my best, but it didn't work, and then I don't know why I'm here in the life situation. At the time, although we feel that God is away from us, but actually God is near to us. That's our foundation, and that we need to make sure God's presence is with us. This is a kind of a graphics from the Joseph's story in the Genesis. And you know that, and he had a real child trauma. And his story is amazing from Genesis 34 to 50, right? And then he got into the position that the prime minister in Egypt, and then saved the whole family and nation. His nation, I mean, his family, as well as, yeah, the Egypt. Um, but he struggled with his brothers, right? And ultimately come down to the point of that the reconciliation. But brothers still was suspicious, right? 'Cause if you look at the last chapter of Genesis, the brothers ask him, "Did you really forgive me?" Well, what I want to say here is that what happened in our childhoods really affect our whole life in a good way. Joseph's story is amazing, victorious story, but also we see that if you look at the Bible carefully, that there's a phrase that God was with him. And see, God was not only with him in the victorious moment; He was with Joseph all the time. And that's the key from the Psalm 34:18. God is near us. We need to see and understand He is always with me. That beginning with, type of theology. What is the name of Jesus? Emmanuel. God is with us. It's very, very important, although I don't feel that way. With that, I want to enter to the science and called the ACEs, diverse childhood experiences. And what is this? And actually, basically, when you have a toxic, stressful life or childhood trauma, it affects your later adult life, all health issues, mental health and medical health and social functioning and all these things. So 20 years ago, Dr. Felody and Anda, they did a study that when they there's a study with a kind of just a normal ordinary in adults, but when they had childhood trauma or toxic stress abuse, neglect, and household dysfunctioning, then they found a humongous correlation between their childhood experiences and their adulthood mental and medical health and their social functioning. From original study, you can see here that 33% of population didn't have any ACEs, but which means over 65% have at least one ACEs. That's still same in the United States. And you can see the kind of differences here. There's a middle ground here, right? However, when you have the zero ACEs, 1 out of 16 smokes. 1 out of 69 alcoholic, 1 out of 480 use IV drugs, and 1 out of 14 has a heart disease, 1 out of 96 attempt to suicide. However, when you have a 7 or more ACEs, what happened? The number is drastically changed at a 16 to 6. 1 out of 6 smokes, and 1 out of 69 are alcoholic, and when you don't have any ACEs, but what happened here? 1 out of 6 are alcoholic, right? I'm sorry, my kind of curve is kind of weird. 1 out of 48 use IV drugs, but if you have 7 or more ACEs, 1 out of 30 has use IV drugs. 1 out of 14 has heart disease when you don't have any ACEs, but 1 out of 6 has heart disease. And look at this, 1 out of 96 attempt to suicide, but when you have 7 or more ACEs, 1 out of 5 attempt to suicide. So it means that there are humongous correlation between that what happened and what will happen. So this ACEs science and tells us that the more you have ACEs and score. What does it mean score? Well, it has 10 questionnaires about abuse and neglect household dysfunctioning. And then out of 10 questions, if you check out one ACEs, then you have a one ACE. And if you check out three items, you have a three ACEs. So when I talk about the previous slide that somebody has zero ACEs, somebody has seven ACEs, which means they checked out and several more ACEs, and you saw the drastic change. And likewise, that here, that the more ACEs you have, it's gonna impact our physical and mental health. And why this is kind of important. You can think that when you have a rough, childhood and past experiences, it can affect our future. I mean, you can think about it, of course. However, still, if you go to our medical model, right? What happened is that if you go to therapists or medical doctors, still talking about what's going on right now, and then we try to fix what's going on right now. But this ACE science tells us what happened. The root cause is very important. So national phrase is that, like, instead of asking what's wrong with you, ask what happened to you. So that means I'm here to listen to your story, right? Okay, so let's look at Jesus. From John chapter 4, there is a woman at the well, the Samaritan woman, right? And the Jewish people despise the Samaritan woman, and in a noon hour, nobody's there, but she was there. And Jesus went to her. And then actually they're dialoguing. And you can see that Jesus knew that what happened to her, the deep heart, core of her heart, there's a deep down guilt and shame. Maybe some people know, some people didn't know. And that's why she came to the well when nobody sees her, right? So that's kind of a very important. It's a biblical that Jesus wanted to touch the core but deep root cause of the people. And so that's really kind of encouraged me that why what happened to is more important and more appropriate rather than just saying what's wrong with you. There's a brain science also. You can see the green part is the prefrontal cortex, which is a major function. But when we are in kind of a very unsafe place, some dangerous place, and then there's a brainstem and saying, hey, I'm not safe, then what happened? The brainstem starting that, okay, I'm not in safe, we are not safe. So there's a portion, amygdala and limbic system, which charges all the emotional part of our system. They just sabotage that whole brain system, and then we call this amygdala hijack. So this main function cannot do anything. It just shut down. So actually the lower brain gonna dominate and control the system, our thinking and feeling and the body system, everything. We call this an amygdala hijack. So you might hear that. So when there's amygdala hijack, trauma brain, survival response is what? Fight, flight, or freeze. However, that's a science and it's a biological kind of the truth that we understand. But the more important thing is that when there's that trauma response and survival response, we all have that. Even small stress, we have that, right? Even I was in the classroom, but I was not prepared. And, I immigrated from other country here, from South Korea. So, I mean, to me, the classroom is all about survivor. So, I could not be settled and grounded and regulated. So I have some kind of weird behaviors, I cannot concentrate. But it can be very weird, but it's what? Physiologically correct behavior, regardless it's annoying, illegal, or immoral. So I want to say that when somebody does annoying, illegal, immoral behavior, whether because of trauma or willful choice, anyway, that person needs to pay the price, and then they need to satisfy the consequences. We are not denying the consequence they have to pay. However, we have to understand if it's because of it happened because of the trauma or root causes, as a fight, flight, and freeze responses, then those behaviors is solution or coping system biologically corrected behavior. This is very important, even the substance use, right? Or the weird kind of the behaviors. All these things is related. If it is related to trauma, actually 95% of the substance use because caused by the trauma, according to research, then that's kind of a coping system. Rather than just they just do want to do bad things. No, it's not like that. And you need to understand that the trauma itself. It's not about something horrible things just happened before. The trauma is a danger and perceived threat, which means when we just look around certain things, you know, the smell of somebody or the environment, right? And then suddenly it reminded me that when I was in trauma, and we call this a re-traumatization. And because of that, my brain just kind of recalculate all the data and then touch my core belief, which means I'm not in safe place. Although there's no threat, my perceived threat makes me re-traumatized. And then I can behave what? Again, weird, right? Activating the annoying and illegal and immoral. And people are gonna judge us, hey, what's wrong with you? Behave yourself. But actually that's biologically correct behavior. I need to be vindicated with that. And so the science tells us that this is from Dr. Bruce Perry, that he talking about the traumatology, that bottom-up approach. So it says the 3R: regulate, relate, and reason, which means when somebody is in a trauma brain, fight or flight or freeze, we cannot just talk because their reason is not ready. Their cortex is shut down, right? So their lower brain need to be regulated, grounded, calm down. So we need to make all the safety first, right? Are you okay? It's okay not to be okay. We are fine here. We are safe here. We can talk like that, and we do some kind of breathing, mindfulness, or prayer, right? Just listening prayer, contemplative prayer, or and just the constant emotions also help according to brain science. I know, but I don't want to talk about much more about this, but we need to make sure instead of freaking out everybody, just to make sure we are safe here. Second thing is that emotionally, the person needs to be related. Instead of rejected, abandoned, bullied, the person needs to feel like, oh, I'm okay, I'm loved here. This is very important. So we need to be safe physiologically, physically, and psychologically in every dimension. And also feeling wise, we need to feel accepted and loved, not condemned. And then after that, my lower brain calm down and then my cortex can start to work. Then we're gonna talk about the reasoning. Hey, do you know what happened? Do you remember? Can we talk about this to improve for the next time? So this is kind of what science tells us, and also the human needs. Uh, uh, this is the Maslow's pyramid here, right? The hierarchy of human needs, and it says what? For the self-actualization, which is very connected to our faith and spirituality. Before that, actually, all the human beings needs to kind of need to meet the basic needs, like physiological needs, food, sleep, right? You know, health, and shelter. But especially food and sleep, that's very important, right? And then the safety needs, security. You see that you see the paralleling here that the goes together: safety and physiological need, safety, and then what? Belonging. I'm loved here. I'm accepted here, right? And then we can really go higher level of a dialogue, and then seeking the purpose and pursuing God, so it can self-actualization. And those are kind of very important here, right? And I'm talking about science. Not only that, I'm talking about our Jesus too. Because let's talk about the woman who got caught in the adultery, right? You know the story. And then what Jesus do? Actually, the first thing was that he didn't ask the woman, hey, what's wrong with you, right? And he actually asked all the accusers and then kicked them out from the scene by his own wisdom. And then he asked the woman, where are they? And woman said, no, they are all gone, right? And then they condemned you, but I don't condemn you. I don't condemn you, right? So the accusers and people condemned all gone. In Jesus, there is what? Safety. There is a what? No condemnation, which means I love you. And then later on, the last statement from Jesus was to sin no more. This is very important biblically. I always say, if you follow Jesus, you're gonna become the best trauma informed care and your best trauma informed congregation, and the best trauma informed church. Simply following Jesus, what he did here. What is that? Instead of he first to start talking about the sin, he talk about what? The safety. Where are all the accusation? She was about to be killed, but she was safe. And then she was accepted, regulate, relate, and then reason, sin no more. Isn't it fascinating that trauma from the church is nothing something about the just science. It's really we follow Jesus and science support what Jesus did, isn't it? You know, if you look at Elijah in the Old Testament, in First King in chapter 19, right? What happened? Actually, he got depressed, and after a humongous victory, ironically, he got depressed. He said, Lord, I want to die. God, I want to die, right? And then at that time, God sent an angel, and he told Elijah, what did he say? Did he say, hey, think about it. What's wrong with you? Read the Bible more, pray more. Did he say that? No. He said, what? Eat and drink. Twice, eat and drink. And so Elijah had ate and drank and slept. What was the first need in Maslow? Right? That's a physiological need. And we need to strengthen, right, our body instead of despise it, ignore it. So science and Bible and God coming together, yes, emerges here together. So this is very important that we cannot play like a Job's friend who got condemned by God. Actually, you are wrong. When Joseph was in the trauma, I'm sorry, when Job was in trauma, he needed somebody make a safety and acceptance and also help him, comfort him, encourage him. That was God's will on Job's friend, but he didn't do that. Hopefully, we convert that to the other way around as we form and build trauma-informed church. So also science says that what? The resilience from the trauma-induced life comes with what? Unconditional love and one person with a constant care. Doesn't it sound like a church? You know, now scientists really research on the grace, compassion, forgiveness, and hope. Of course, love. And we are in the era right now, the science and faith coming together in this trauma-informed care, trauma-informed community building movement. So I want to invite you to this movement with presenting the gospel of a trauma-informed congregation. Usually we only know one verse, John 3:16, but it has also another verse, the next verse I always assert. What it say? For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, so that everyone who believes in him may not perish, but may have eternal life. Indeed, God did not send the son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. So what does it mean? That God sends them to love, give us safety and acceptance, so we can experience the unconditional love, and that will bring us conviction, so we can repent and we can come back to our Father in his love. That's a completion of the gospel of Jesus. And I invite you all to this movement. And if you want to join us, please contact me at thefaithfulcity@gmail.com or call me at 480-703-6993. God bless you all. Thank you.